Shalom, guys. Okay, I really was joking, but when it was confirmed to me that I was going to be reading you guys this story, I figured I better do part 1 8/10, just so 1 9/10 would still be open, just in case. I don't foresee any plans of that, though. Oh, that's weird. Constantly moving. Maybe if I just... Is that better? Okay, I'm going to be reading to you guys out of the book of Yashar. When I first read it, I was like, just wow. And then, as days went on, Abba kept bringing it to my mind and teaching me more. So when I read it, I'm going to talk about a few things that Abba is leading me to talk about. But for the rest, I'm just going to leave it to be something that you search out with him and just talk to him about. That is what I've realized is the biggest reason for these messages, this hidden knowledge series. The whole reason why it was so important for him to be teaching us about the hidden knowledge and what is unseen and the living word is because we have been programmed to rely on the world for everything, even if we don't realize it. We've really been programmed to need the words and approval of man. Also thinking that we're supposed to know the answers to everything and we just look to man to answer those questions. Now, I know many of you are understanding right now what I'm talking about because it's been going in the opposite direction for us, where our Abba has been pulling us out of the ways of the world. He's been cleansing our mind. He's been renewing our mind, transforming us by it. And we are looking to him more and more for all provision. That is what this hidden knowledge series is all about. That's why he had me write Yahweh revealed at the top of it. That was him causing me to do that. And it's all about us becoming one with him. He is sharing his heart with us. He is becoming more and more intimate with us. He is continuing to reveal himself deeper and deeper. He wants to have these intimate moments with us where we're coming to him for anything, everything, and asking him our questions and asking him to teach us, renew our mind, heal our way of thinking, and he's just waiting for us to ask all the time. And he is causing us to zakar him, remember him, remember his name, remember who he is. All the thoughts that are brought to our mind, just chew on that. There is so much more I've learned about zakar. So, first of all, the first thing I want to say about this book of Yashar, it has details of what we have in the canon from Genesis through Joshua. I don't know if it goes to the end of Joshua, but that's like the timeline. It really goes into detail of all of the things that happened in between all of the things that we have written in our Bibles. Something really interesting I just wanted to bring up for you to chew on. The word Yashar has the same root word as Ashar, Shin Resh, and that is the root word that talks about being pressed to the beginning, and it talks about a cord and a tie. This is the word that talks about the umbilical cord. That is like a model of how he is feeding us. Now, we've talked about this word Ashar quite a bit, I think. I'm seeing it all the time. The word Ashar is probably the word that I've seen most in as I've been doing all my studies, and they always translate it to some sort of ridiculous transition word. I mean, it's translated as so many different words that don't even have any connection to each other. They had no idea what to do with this word. They don't understand it because it needs to be spiritually understood. You cannot understand this word unless you have the Ruach of Yahweh. And remember, the scribes, the people who translated the Bible, were not hired based on their relationship with the Father. They were hired based on their ability to translate language. And when you don't have the Ruach, you can't translate his language. So this word Ashar, the first time I brought it up to you guys, which I think was in the... it was 1 Corinthians 1:8. And I mentioned really quick to think about a DNA strand is like a cord, like a rope. And, saying just kind of chew on that. It's been revealing more and more about that. This word shar is about us being fed. And that's how we're pressed to the beginning. That's how we're drawn to him, by being fed by his living word. We were talking in the last video about counsel. Just listen to how everything connects so awesomely. So we were studying the word sod in the last video, which is talking about the deepest level of scripture and talks about, hiding seeds under the ground, planting under the ground, which connected from Father Abraham, which I did not plan. This word sod also means counsel. And I was telling you that trees in scripture are also representative of counsel. Who is your counselor? Who are you getting counseled from? Whose messages are you accepting? And the way that they used to make cord is by taking the bark of trees. This is just one of the ways that they would make cord. The bark from cedar trees, I think, and, make rope with that. And so all of these things connect, and the name Yashar means the same thing, going all the way down to the roots. It means a tight rope, and it talks about, one who walks uprightly, and their actions are upright because they're being fed with good counsel. So I'm going to remind you right now about the negative of that and the counsel from the bad seed, from the enemy, and how much we've been learning about negative and positive images of all of the Otiot, all of the words, and that goes the same with the word Ashar. The Asherah, there's the Asherah tree. If you look up images for Asherah tree, it's really interesting what's coming up. I'm just saying. Remember that our enemy is in disguise as the light. His signs and his concepts and his counsel and meanings that he's teaching, everything is going to look very similar. It's just absent of the key. It's absent of Yahweh Echad, the unit of Yahweh with his word and his ruach. The deception is so much more deceiving than we ever could have realized. So I'm going to start the story now, but I just wanted to let you know that this portion that I'm going to be reading, which is in chapter 77, and I'm not going to read the whole chapter, I just wanted to let you know where this fits in our canon. This is in the middle of Shemot, Exodus. This is just after that whole well scene, Moshe and Zipporah, his soon-to-be wife, and this is actually the portion that takes place before they get married and before the burning bush. And this is actually taking place at Zipporah's father's house, Reuel. So that's where we're at. Okay, here we go. Chapter 77, verse 38. And afterward, Moshe went into the garden of Reuel, which was behind the house, and there he prayed to Yahweh his Elohim, who had done mighty wonders for him. And it came to be that while he prayed, he looked opposite to him, and see, an inscribed rod was placed in the ground, which was planted in the midst of the garden. And he approached the rod, and he looked, and see, The name of Yahweh, Elohim of hosts, was engraved on it, written and produced upon the rod. And he read it, and stretched out his hand, and he plucked it like a forest tree from the thicket, and the rod was in his hand. And this is the rod with which all the works of our Elohim were performed, after he had created the Shamayim and the earth, and all the host of them, the seas, rivers, and all their fishes. And when Elohim had driven Adam from the Garden of Eden, he took the rod in his hand and went and tilled the garden from which he was taken. And the rod came down to Noah, and was given to Shem and his descendants, until it came into the hand of Avraham, the Ivri, the Hebrew. And when Abraham had given all he had to his son Yitzchak, he also gave to him this rod. And when Yaakov had fled to Paddan Aram, he took it in his hand, and when he returned to his father, he had not left it behind. Also, when he went down to Mitzrayim, he took it in his hand and gave it to Yosef, one portion above his brothers, for Yaakov had taken it by force from his brother Esau. And after the death of Yosef, the nobles of Mitzrayim came into the house of Yosef, and the rod came into the hand of Reuel, the Midianite. And when he went out of Mitzrayim, he took it in his hand and planted it in his garden. And all the mighty men of the Canaanites tried to pluck it when they strove to get Zipporah, his daughter, but they were unsuccessful. So the rod remained planted in the garden of Reuel until he who had a right to it came and took it. And when Reuel saw the rod in the hand of Moshe, he was amazed by it, and he gave him his daughter Zipporah for a wife. So take some time digesting, and you might want to listen to this story a few times. There is a lot there, and there are a few things that Abba has put it on my heart to mention. It says that the rod was planted in the midst of the garden. So this is a reference to the tree of Chai, the tree of life. I've been studying the trees a lot lately. I've been translating in Genesis a lot, and I might be talking more about the tree of Chai coming up soon. Abba did bring me to a scripture that talks about the tree of Chai, and I wanted to read it to you, and actually I want to read you the translation of it in the Otiot, because the Otiot just gives such a deeper understanding. Well, I'm just going to read the Hallelujah Scriptures version first. Proverbs 3 verse 18, and it's talking about wisdom. She is a tree of Chai to those taking hold of her, and Baruch are those who retain her. So first of all, really quick, I know that we've talked about this with Alan before, the whole she thing, how it's always calling wisdom a she. I've thoroughly studied this. It's totally not accurate. I don't know when it is that they started doing that, but going all the way back into the Otiot, and when this was written down, words that were translated to she and her have nothing to do with gender at all. You'll find places in the lexicon that, further down in little places that say that they do, but that's only because they were translated in the Bible that way, so that they had to be put in there, oh, here's another word that this could mean. Not have to do with she at all. Just to give you an example, so in this verse it says she once and her twice. The first one, she, is the word haya, and it literally means look, behold, the work of Yahweh. So we're talking about wisdom. Wisdom is the work of Yahweh. Wisdom is the word of Yahweh. And when they're translating as she, they're also talking about wisdom, but totally inaccurately. So the other time that they translated her, actually the third time that they translated her, they just stuck it in there. But the other word that they translated to her is just the word ba, and it's talking about a need, like for a need that needs to be filled. And it also talks about a box, like an empty box. It's really talking about an empty space that needs to be filled. So I don't know why they translated that as her, but when I read the translation, you're gonna see how that fits. And I just want to remind you about how when we were, I don't even know what video it was, but whatever video I started talking about debar, the word, how the word is order, and then we also looked at the word for light, and that also has to do with boxes and order. So this word also connects, talking about that this is something that wisdom does, that the wisdom of Yahweh, the counsel of Yahweh does, fills our needs like filling up an empty space inside of us. Beautiful, right? Our empty space is filled by the counsel and order of Yahweh, His word. See, all these things that, we talk about, and he keeps showing more and more models and meanings and understandings, but they're still all just talking about the same thing. They're all talking about Him and His word and unification with Him and feeding us, Him healing us, Him providing us with salvation. This is what all of these words are about. And these are the hidden messages that were left for us. We can see through this language of darkness with a bunch of connecting words that have no meaning to them. The more that we talk to Abba about His word and just talk to Him about everything, we fellowship together and keep watching these videos, go all the way back to the beginning and watch them all again. You'll see all new stuff because your understanding has been growing and your mind has been being washed. And so when you go through a second time and you watch videos that you've already watched, you're going to see totally different things. You're going to see things that I didn't even see at the time of making these videos. I've been realizing sometimes I'll watch one of my old videos and I'll see the layers of teaching, like something that he spoke in the video that I have the understanding of now, but I didn't then. It's just so amazing how he's doing this. Okay, so I'm going to read the translation from the Otiot now, which is going to be a lot longer because, it takes a lot more words to talk about all of the understanding that's in the Otiot, and this still doesn't even give it justice. So this scripture is telling us about the wisdom of Yahweh, the counsel of Yahweh, and the tree of Chai. Look, behold, the wisdom of Yahweh, delivering messages to hearts, causing understanding by His counsel, making firm and upright those who take hold of His staff, His rod, receiving the flow of His teachings, standing upright like the tree of Chai, through whom the living waters flow, filling all needs, filling all empty spaces, filling by the Ruach and the order of Yahweh, making straight the paths of those who hold fast to the counsel of Yahweh, bending to His might, maturing, being healed, made whole and marked, and the wisdom of Yahweh will flow out of their mouths. Okay, so while we're talking about this, I'm going to give you a few more things to chew on. Okay, so because this is just so awesome. So think of mem, the ot mem. And we know that mem can represent water or blood, but it also can represent other liquid, other models of liquid that are created by Yahweh. Like, we're not talking about coffee and tea, but the liquid created by Yahweh. I talked about in my last video how the words for ground and man both come from the same root, which is dam, dalet mem, and that is the meaning of blood. It actually has the the meaning of working blood, blood flowing in and out. And I want you to think about how the ground and a tree is planted in the ground, and how the roots from the tree soak up and drink the water from the ground, and then the water comes up through the tree, like through all the veins of the tree and all the way through all the branches. And this is similar to how our blood is flowing through our veins. You could just keep going with this study. I mean, if you ask Abba to just talk to you about this, there's so much there. But the reason why I bring this up is because the meaning of this word for rod. First of all, we just read that this is the rod with which all the works were performed by Elohim. This is talking about the living word. And this rod being in the scene is something that he is using to teach us. This is the scene model that he gave us to teach us about the unseen. So if you open your Bibles and you turn to Shemot, Exodus, chapter 4, verse 2, what does it say? You can pause here if you just want to find out yourself and get really excited. Moshe has been standing there at the burning bush, and he's been talking to Yahweh, and Yahweh has already revealed his name at this point, and then this is after he's already been told to go and tell Pharaoh to set the Israelites free. So now we're at the point where Moshe is he's having anxiety, a little nervous. He's like, yeah, but, I'm slow to speak. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if they don't believe me? What if they don't believe me? And what if they don't listen to me? And right after he asks Yahweh, what do I do if they don't believe me? Yahweh asks Moshe, what's that in your hand? And what does Moshe say? A rod. This is the rod that he pulled out of the ground in the midst of Reuel's garden. This rod is a representation or an image of the living word, or the counsel of Yahweh, or the wisdom of Yahweh. It's all the living word of Yahweh. It's all Yahweh, Echad. In other words, this is to say that, it's not your work, it's my work. He's calling Moshe to do something really big. And just like any of us would be, he was nervous that people were not going to believe him. And Moshe was the one chosen to take that rod out of the garden. And just before he pulled it out, he had a conversation with Yahweh. He was speaking with him. He was calling out to his authority. And now he's got it in his hand. And this is the rod with which the works will be performed. But it's not Moshe doing the works. Just like everything that we're doing, if we're doing anything good, it's only because of him. And that is what this rod represents. The work of Yahweh, the living word, did the work for us. His work that brought salvation. And the reason that we were talking about it in my last video is because I was talking about Zayin being the plowing tool, and how that is also an example of doing the work by Yahweh, him doing the work, the whole understanding of plowing. Another thing that's really interesting about this is that notice it starts right from Adam. So it goes from Adam all the way to Yosef, being passed down through all of the patriarchs, everyone who was walking with Yahweh. Notice it was through all of those who had the birthright. So this is being passed down through all of these men. And then what happened after Yosef died? All of a sudden it got into the hands of a Midianite. From the time that the Midianite planted it in his garden and it was sitting in the ground all that time, that was the time in which the Israelites went into slavery. So it wasn't too long after Yosef died that all of a sudden a Pharaoh came along that did not know Yosef, and the Israelites went into slavery. And it was all the way until Moshe. So it's over 400 years. And what happens when that rod comes back out of the ground? It's been put in the hands of one of Yahweh's chosen again. The rescue, which we're celebrating right now, by the way. I mean, we're at Passover. I mean, we're celebrating all this right now. This is, Yahweh has done this. He has set this up for this, for us to be talking about this right now. It's just so awesome. Passed down from Adam to Yosef, and then coming into the hands of Moshe. And this is the rod that was given to Aaron that blossomed, the almond blossoms. And there's more. Ask Abba. He'll show you all through the word about this rod. This word for rod is mem tet he. It is the word matah, and it means a branch or a staff. And that's the meaning of the child root. But when you go down into the parent roots, this is so amazing. So the parent root of mem tet, that is also a branch, but the specific ancient Hebrew definition is liquid inside. Liquid contained inside. You know, you can see the mem and the tet. And specifically, it says, like a plant that has water flowing through it has life. So if the plant has water flowing through it, like we were talking about, like the living water coming up through the ground and through the roots like veins and filling the whole entire plant, the plant has life. And then if the plant dries out and there's no more water left in the plant, it dies. Same thing with a tree. So what's so amazing about this rod, this branch that they kept passing down, why was it so amazing to them? Because they knew that it had life. It was living. It's just a branch of a tree. So how can a branch of a tree still have water contained inside? And that's how Reuel was able to plant it in his garden. And you know, the whole thing about the mighty men coming and everybody trying to yank it out, they obviously knew it was special. You're probably thinking of Disney's Sword in the Stone right now. Yeah, Disney gets all of its ideas from truth, but it is all from the bad seed. If you've seen The Sword in the Stone, you know what I'm talking about. It is not hard to see the darkness in that movie, the obvious planting of the bad seed there. And do you see the lineup of truth there? And they even use a sword. A sword. Who's our sword? The living word. Yeah, that's our weapon. The other interesting root about this word is mem he, which is talking about the sea, but only because it's talking about what is unknown about the sea. So this word for rod, matah, is also talking about what is unknown. So we've been talking about the planting place in Ezekiel 34, when Yahweh talks about how he's going to gather his sheep himself, because all of the teachers, all of the shepherds have gone astray and led the sheep astray. And so Yahweh himself is going to gather his sheep and prepare a planting place. And I don't know if you remember me telling you, but that word for planting place is matah. And it's spelled differently. Instead of mem tet he, like the rod, it's spelled mem tet ayin. And this I've been finding a lot with the Otiot words, and some of the words that sound the exact same, but they are spelled with different oats that make the same sound. And there's also mem and nun switched out a lot of times, and sheen and samech, same thing. And there are some other ones. There's more and more I keep learning about the Otiot, and it's just so awesome. So this word matah, Shem, that is the planting place of name that Yahweh talks about in Ezekiel that he's going to raise up, which is this planting place right here. So they share the same root of mem tet, which is talking about the branch, and it's talking about the liquid inside and how a plant with flowing water, with water flowing through it, has life. This is what he's doing now, guys. He's putting this rod in our hands now. That's why he is bringing this out right now. He is becoming that intimate with us now. So get this part. Now, since this word is spelled with an ayin instead of a hey, one of the roots is mem ayin, which talks about the belly, and I'm going to talk more about this in part 2, but it's talking about an unknowing knowing. An unknowing knowing. Have you ever heard of that phrase, gut feeling? Oh, just go with your gut feeling. Where did we get that from? Yeah, it comes from these roots right here. That's why we still use this saying today, the gut feeling. Because the gut, once the food has been all digested, and we know that the stomach is all about meditation, and you have been meditating, well, now you have this unknowing knowing, like you know things. It's like knowing the unknown. And Vanessa has brought this up before, where all of a sudden you realize that you know something that you already knew, but you didn't know that you knew it. And that's what's been happening to us lately, because this is the planting place. I mean, can this get any more amazing? Yes, it can. So how I just mentioned that sometimes the oats that have the Otiot that have similar sounds, they are switched out sometimes. And so one of those is the mem and the nun. And this word, mata, for the planting place, used to in ancient times also be spelled with a nun. They don't spell it with a nun anymore. When it's spelled with a nun, it's also meaning gift. So nata is talking about a gift. This rod, his counsel, his wisdom, his feeding us with his living word, it is a gift. And the root to that word, nun tet, is talking about a seed basket for collecting seeds. That one goes deeper. So we know that all of the Otiot represent the living word, and all of them teach us about the living word. Now think about that. Think about that this is the rod, the seen image that he's given us. He's given us that model to understand, because really we know that all of these things happened in the unseen. Yahweh is unseen. His living word is unseen. Remember, we've been talking about how the unseen is more real than the seen, and everything that's seen is temporary. So when we're talking about this rod, that we get a picture in our minds. Now, where do you think the idea of magic wands came from? Okay, so there's your negative image. And remember, we've been talking about how Satan likes us to focus on what is seen. And that's why he gives us these things. And how many people do you see obsessed with magic and Harry Potter? And geez, you go to Disney World, and is it Disney World? I don't know if it's Disney World or Universal Studios, one of those, where they have like a huge park, I think more than one park, dedicated to Harry Potter, and the whole park is interactive with these magic wands, and all these kids are buying magic wands, and they're all sitting there, waving their magic wands like throughout this whole entire park. This is the counsel of the wicked. That magic wand represents the counsel of the wicked. And a lot of times it's a branch used. And I think it's even, don't they even use branches in Harry Potter? Maybe? I don't know. I mean, this is crazy, right? I mean, I'm receiving Melta right now, like about this stuff while I'm doing this video. So then we see that as soon as Adam is kicked out of the garden and put into this scene, the very first thing that we see being done with this rod is that Adam is using it to till the ground. So this is really all about the Zayin, us tilling the ground with the counsel of Yahweh in our hand. That's how we are to be walking. That's how we are to be occupying. If we are not doing it with the counsel of Yahweh, then all of it is in vain. None of it has purpose if we are not doing it with Him, if we are not doing it with His counsel. Grabbing a hold of that wisdom, not because it's ours, but because He gave it to us as a gift. This rod is also the staff, represents the living word that yokes us, and we always see the rod and the staff being used together. What does the lamed teach us? It teaches us about the guidance and direction of Yahweh by His word. It's all the same, it's just several different models. It's all about the work of the living word in us, with us. I'm hoping that all of you are also gathering with us on Caregivers channel a couple times a week for live fellowship. If you can't make it live, at least just watch them at a different time, because everything that He's doing through her is confirming all of this. If you've been noticing, she's not planning her messages either. A question in the live stream when she announced that we were going to do communion, how should we prepare? And what was her answer? I'm not going to tell you how to prepare. Go to Yahweh about it. She wasn't saying oh, well, I'm not going to tell you because you should already know, type of a thing. No, nobody should already know. Nobody should have it all planned out. Nobody should be thinking oh, how do people do communion? How do people do Passover? Well, let's get on the internet and check it out. We don't need that. We just need Him. We don't need to know what man tells us to do, because these words that we have that have been translated a zillion times that we can clearly see is only a fraction of what He really wants to tell us. So why don't we just go right to Him for our instructions? His message coming out is to go to Him for all provision. All the messages that He's been giving us are all part of the same thing, the unification and fellowship message, and the one about Him being our loving and providing Father, about going to Him to provide everything for us, for everything that we need. Don't forget, they didn't have the Bible since creation. They didn't need the words written down for them back then. He did it for us so that as the world continued to get further and further mad, those who are truly seeking Him would find Him. Can't find Him without tilling the ground. You can't find Him without plowing. Yahweh is unseen, and we don't dig with our own hands. Remember, that is those who think they know Him. We studied that in Romans. That word is kiru. They knew Him. They didn't really. They're the ones who are worshiping the image, worshiping the words on the page, worshiping the words of man, digging with their own hands. No, we till the ground with the counsel of Yahweh. That is the gift that He has given us. His living word, His counsel, His rod and staff that guides us. Remember, that rod and staff can be used as a weapon. I know we're all facing trials right now of all different kinds. Remember that the hardest trials are at the end, just like the biggest contractions are towards the end of birth. Before, the birth comes, the contractions get harder and harder and closer together. We are all feeling it. We don't have much longer to go, guys. Any minute, it's time. Stay yoked by His lamed, by His word, His counsel. Be bound by Him. When we're bound by Him, He's holding us tight because we have His counsel, so He's given us understanding. It keeps us from going our own way. Keeps us from taking matters into our own hands, especially in trials. It keeps us knowing that He's got it all in His hands. He has established our way. I know so many of you are feeling the same thing that I'm feeling. So remember, this message is about the counsel of Yahweh. He is the teacher. He is the counselor. Go right to Abba Father Yahweh. I hope that this message was a beracha to all of you, and I love you guys so much. Stay yoked. Shalom.
Morning without a word left to say. Close your mind, go on living in the world you created. Oh, where's the goodness of all your labors when you can't remember your days? Yeah, kick the dust off what it must be. Let it be gone with the wind. Yeah, let it go up in the wind. The Lord said, fly, bird, and I said, yes, sir, 'cause I believe in His song. Now, my days are flowing just like the fountain I remember so long, long ago. No, sir, but would you show me in your very special way? Yeah, yeah. The Lord said, fly, bird, and I said, yes, sir, 'cause I believe in His song. Now, my days are flowing just like the fountain I remember